that is being used as a DDoS zombie, what's Comcast going to do? Nothing.
Well, actually, I had a machine compromise, unfortunately, and they actually cut off my connection. And
They did?
About 48, 72 hours. Yeah, what happened is
Wow, okay.
I had to do some testing, so I opened up my port, and somebody went in there and compromised it. I actually handed it to them. So, but they compromised it, and within like 12 hours of them throwing up a lot on my machine, they cut off my connection for 48 hours.
Wow, okay. So I guess they're running or something.
Who was your ISP? Comcast. I was really surprised. It was a Sunday night. It was literally 12 hours from when the person who compromised my machine that I had cut off. About a month ago.
Huh, okay. That's good to know.
Machine that I had thrown up that I was just doing some testing on. Somebody compromised it, and I was surprised that within 12 hours they cut off my internet.
Okay.
Generally, whenever I'm getting DOS, it's from China. So what do
Yeah.
you do in situations like that?
Nothing. You send out an email and hope the best and expect nothing, unfortunately. And that's a problem with the internet being decentralized, is that a lot of people who should be responsible for taking care of these problems just don't give a shit, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Most of your cable providers now have acceptable use config files that they'll force down to the cable modem when the IDSs pick up the additional traffic.
Okay.
Because they are using MRTG to trend all the gigabit interfaces out of the routers, and they will notice a pickup at pace or port.
I totally believe you that this exists.
Well, you go to Cable Labs, there's a lot of specifications that are being forced down on them for the next level of DOCSIS. So.
Okay. Cool. I totally believe you, and that's awesome, and I'm glad to know that. But being somebody who's been on the receiving side, if it works in 50% of the cases, that's still a lot of attack traffic. If it works in 25% of the cases, it's still a lot of attack traffic. So it's awesome that they're finally starting to make progress on this issue. But I'm going against this as the point of somebody who's been hit. And it doesn't matter to me because I still get taken offline. And that's unfortunate, but that's just how it is. Anybody else? Okay. Other responses to a DDoS attack, generally, it is not done to shut somebody down completely. It's meant to take all of your primary servers and everything offline. But except for when it's done by motivation of profit, like the people are hired to DDoS competitors' companies and take down their web servers so one company can do better. This has been in the news a few times where somebody will get together a botnet and sell out the botnet services so that somebody can have their competitor DDoSed. Usually if it's not for money, and by usually I mean every single time from what I've seen, when it's not for money, the person wants to be able to brag that they're fucking you over. And they always want to be able to let you get on. Hopefully, they hope you get through a neighbor's wireless or something like that. But when you find them, and it usually doesn't take much to find them, they make it very well known that they're doing it, especially if this is through IRC. So there are a number of ways to use this to your advantage. First, you find somebody on IRC that's bragging about how hard they're hitting you. This happened to us once at the Hacker Halfway House, and one of my roommates said, we've worked with the FBI before to get people who do DDoS attacks put in prison. If you don't believe me, here is a file that provides the FBI report of what happened last time around. And the file was on his own web server. And 5 seconds later, there was an access to this web server for that file by a residential account somewhere in California. Oops. That's one way that this person was tracked down, and we were able to find out who he was. And when we called him on it, saying that we had his personal information, he stopped. So didn't even need to threaten violence. But when we said, hey, we know your IP, we know who you are, we've found out some information about you, and we can find you if we need to, he dropped it. And you need to come up with new and interesting ways of catching them like this because of the anonymity, and especially with compromising machines and using them as proxies and being completely anonymous, you need to have some other way of tricking them into finding their identity. And usually if you find their identity, it then goes over to the real world situation of, oh shit, I'm actually responsible for my actions. And at that point, people generally back off. And this is how you can persuade the attacker to stop. You can either ask nicely and say, hey, I'm sorry. And you know, saying you're sorry, even if you don't mean it, works really well on a lot of people because they just want to feel better about themselves. And if you say, you know, I was an asshole, I'm sorry, can you please stop? And they stop, then you win because the best you can do is break even, and that's your win situation. And then
Basically just an enabler at that point?
yes, but if you're looking at trying to maintain your own site, then unfortunately there's nothing else you can do. And hopefully then somebody else will be the person that finally decides to use the finger breaking approach. And you know, hopefully they just threaten it, but it's a social problem, not a technological problem. And if you want to talk about the whole, you know, if you submit to the bully, does the bully get more aggressive? I'm not an expert in that area, and I just know what works for, oh crap, I'm getting 60 megabits of attack traffic, I need it to stop right now so that I can report this guy. So it might not be the best way, but it works.
How about the FBI that you were mentioning? I think the threat of a pound me in the ass federal penitentiary would certainly also make people stop.
Yes. They have said that if anybody ever DDoSes me, they would consider a DDoS attack also an attack on infrastructure. And they have asked me very politely if I would be willing to give up logs of any DDoS attacks that happen in the future. And while I'm very protective about my users and I'm very, very much about privacy and not giving up any info, if they want to go against a DDoSer, they're more than welcome to. Not my problem. So yeah, that's unfortunately, though, in most cases, the FBI will not look into anything like that unless there is a large amount of monetary loss from a large company. And unless it's doing at least $10,000 in reported damage, chances are they're not going to even bat an eye at it. Against a person who's spending $100 a month on a colo, they don't care. Anybody else? Okay. And the last option is to just wait. And it sucks because you don't know how long you're going to have to wait for. But most people who do these sort of attacks know that if their botnet is in consistent use, they will get noticed. And they just want to do it to prove a point. So they might hit you for 5 minutes now and 30 minutes later and 30 minutes an hour after that. But at some point, they will find somebody else that has pissed them off, and they will turn their botnet against somebody else. And this is the worst option. And it's an option that I've had to deal with at least twice. But it works. Eventually, somebody will lose interest, and the DDoS attack will not be permanent. So, last part, blame game. Who's at fault for a DDoS attack? And this is the part that's hit me the hardest out of all of this. So I called my ISP when my service was down and said, hey guys, what's up? And they said, we got no idea. Okay, I'll let them figure it out. Get a call back, and they said, you're being hit by a distributed denial of service attack. What did you do? And I said, excuse me? And I said, well, you're being hit with a DDoS. Did you piss somebody off? Were you on IRC? I'm like, why does that matter? What's up? Like, why are you asking me about this as if I'm the person who is to blame for this attack? And then they noticed that I had an IRC server running on my machine. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the IRC server that I was being attacked over. And they immediately decided that it was my fault. And I was paying them a good amount of money for colo services. And they basically said, we'll change your IP this time. We will black hole all attack traffic going to your IP. You can set up your machine on another IP and hope the attacker doesn't change it. But if it happens again, your service is being terminated. And the last time this happened, I had just drank a bottle and a half of wine because I was in a really shitty mood and gone to bed. And then 5 minutes later, I got the call saying, so we're going to shut you off. And I don't really remember a lot of what I said, but I definitely did question their competence as an ISP and a colo facility if they can't black hole port 80 coming from a certain address block and have other traffic to other customers in the ISP service be okay. And when I started questioning their competency, they left me alone, and they really should be able to take care of it. But it's easier to blame the victim, especially if you're on IRC. If you're on IRC, you've done something wrong. That's all it comes down to. There is a stigma attached to IRC that is not associated with any other instant messaging service. And a lot of that comes from the fact that your host address is visible in IRC, so if somebody wants to attack you directly, they can do it. If you're using AIM, if you're using Yahoo or MSN, and you try to do the option for a direct connect, say to send a file, it will pop up with a screen saying, you're about to give up your IP to the address of somebody who might be a hacker. Are you sure you want to do this? And the reason for that is because people on the internet are assholes, DDoSing is easy, and that's not a good combination. So if you're doing something on IRC, you've obviously done something wrong, you've pissed somebody else off, and it's your fault. And why is it your fault? Because if you've got a $30 a month cable modem contract, it's more cost effective for them to kill your account, lose you as a customer, and if you say, I'll never do business with you again, they're like, okay, whatever. It's more cost effective for them to get rid of you. And if you're paying twice that, $60 a month for DSL, it's still more profitable for them to boot you. Because if they're getting downtime to other customers, they will lose more customers, and the moment they've lost 2 customers, it's no longer cost effective. And I don't know the actual numbers that they use to calculate these things, but I definitely have had multiple ISPs tell me this bluntly. It is more cost effective that we drop you than to deal with the problem.
Just a quick bit of math.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Just a quick bit of math. $30 or $60 a month versus $30 or $60 for a few hours of a text time.
Yeah. Okay. And the colo that I pay $100 a month for, I figured that they would be more than happy to take care of the problem, and I was wrong. Because it was happening at 2 a.m., the colo, which as far as I know is run by 2 people, even though they present themselves as a large colo facility, they're just renting out rack space in a data center. The DDoS attack at 2 a.m. meant that James had to wake up, go to the data center, and deal with the problem himself at 2 a.m. And he wasn't very happy with that. And that wasn't worth $100 a month to him, apparently. So, cost effective or sleep effective? Yeah, I don't know. But so that's why the victim is generally blamed. And here's a portion from their acceptable use policy from my colo facility that I'm paying $100 a month for, specifically so that I can run servers, specifically a shell server. And at the bottom it says, if a user's IRC servers or participating clients in an IRC network are frequently compromised or attract denial of service or distributed denial of service attacks that disrupt or deny service to other customers or users, the colo, which I edited out here because I don't want to name any names, may null route, filter, suspend, or terminate that customer's service. So they say right away in their ISP, if you go on IRC and you get DDoSed, we can cut you off. And I don't think this is right. I found this out after the fact. I did read through the AUP when I first signed on, but I must have said, oh yeah, that's whatever, it's not going to happen, it's not a big deal, and just forgot about it. So this is how they were able to tell me that when I got DDoSed and they noticed that port 6667 was open, that it was my fault and that they were going to cut me off. So read your AUPs very, very carefully and know what your rights are.